Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal?
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals.
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks?
This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into recommendations.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to the national news services, AP and UPI?
Well, again, I think we're getting into the kind of detail, Mr. Chairman, that I'd prefer to handle in executive session.
And the real question is, do you have any people paid by the CIA who hold elected positions? But I think the answer to that by now should be pretty damn obvious. Yes. And finally, do you have any people paid by the CIA who work for other intelligence agencies? Again, an obvious answer for an agency that's based on covert operations and gathering intelligence outside of normal channels. So it should be pretty safe to assume that the CIA, NSA, FBI, factions of the media, even social media, and or government are all loyal or infiltrated by agents of the CIA. Which brings me to the current push for gun control and confiscation in Virginia. If the Democrats are really concerned about saving lives, they would address the opioid crisis that kills more people on an annual basis than guns even could come close to. Would push to legislate laws that hamper drinking and driving and the deaths of innocent people through other people's irresponsibility, which kills more people than guns or gun violence across the nation. So what's it all about? We just heard it at the beginning of this video, or at least was in my opinion. Because what's in Virginia? The headquarters of the CIA. And if it turns out to be true, the method of control that's used to blackmail and control people is horrific as it's supposedly looks, they would have every interest in protecting themselves because the citizenry as a whole would be so offended that they might actually come out and start hunting people down for crimes against humanity. As some of you may or may not know, I looked after an old guy who grew up in Germany before World War II started. And he told me everything that transpired before the war actually kicked off. The first thing they did was take the guns. And then they tried to control speech. And then they started burning literature that they didn't want people to have access to. And then, when they realized that certain people weren't willing to go along with what they were trying to establish, they started snuffing them out. And contrary to popular belief, It wasn't confined to just the Jewish community. If anyone spoke out against what was trying to be established, all of a sudden they'd disappear. And sometimes if they thought that it would make a big enough impression on the people in the town, they'd burn their house down. They'd drag them out in the street and do horrible, unspeakable things to them as an example to everybody else as to how they should act and what they should believe. It was called the war to end all wars. But what most people don't believe and weren't taught is that it never ended. They just put it on ice, or under the ice, more accurately. So let's compare these times with those times. They're trying to disarm the people. They're trying to control speech. They're having consequences for people who aren't willing to go along with the system that they're setting up by silencing their voices, taking away their bank accounts and their property, and yes, even publicly humiliating people so that the message will be given to everybody else that if they can do that to them, they can do it to us, to try and intimidate the American public and put them into submission so that the other side can complete what they want to do. And their favorite tactic, that should be obvious to everybody by now, is that they always blame the other side or the other guy for things that they have been doing themselves. And the Second Amendment was established specifically for a situation like we're in right now, where someone else comes along and says, you're going to do things our way, or we're going to take you out, be it through your speech, your finances, or other ways. Most people are disappointed when they get socks and underwear for Christmas, but the reality of it is they are more important and will outlast the toys that we would all like to receive and provide some benefit in the future beyond being a distraction of a way to pass the time. So I'll wrap this up by saying what I've always been saying. It's not that they don't like Donald Trump, which by the way they don't. It's that they're scared of him because he can expose what they have been up to and are trying to do. So Merry freaking Christmas. Here's your socks and underwears. Take 'em and go.